When it comes to planning a successful garden, I think there's one major factor that most people overlook, and that is the gardener themselves. You can make the best plans with the most intention, considering your climate, considering your space, considering what you actually want to grow. But if you don't stop to consider what you can actually do, what you can give to the execution of this plan, then you might still fail. So the goal of this video and this part of the planning process is to get you to think about what you can realistically do, but also about what you actually want to do, especially when it comes to how much of your time you actually want to give to the garden. One of the things that I see the most often, especially in mid to late summer from other gardeners online, is this sense of screw it. Everything is too hard, it's too hot, I'm gonna let the weeds grow, the plants are gonna do whatever, like all of my energy is just absolutely gone. So I think one of the biggest reasons that gardeners fail, right? It's not like actual failure, it is just sheer exhaustion. It is not being prepared for how much work is actually going to go into maintaining a garden. And the point of this video and of this course in general is to set you up with a garden that is going to set you up for success. And part of that is thinking ahead about what your limitations are going to be and setting yourself up with some very realistic goals, because dreaming big is really, really fun, and there is room for that this year, next year, and every year after this. You can absolutely build on what you're starting now, but you cannot do everything all at once. If you've seen any of my videos before seeing this course that I'm currently in with you right here, you will have seen how large my garden is. I've got the main section over here behind me. I've also got a whole nother section of raised beds. I have another in-ground section that is more perennial focused, and I'm starting to plant trees and fruit trees and bushes and stuff like that. Oh, hello. And I think I could not have done all of that in my first year. I can keep up with it now, but I mean, even with all the raised beds that I have, setting all of them up in the exact same year, that would have been a really hard task. So definitely splitting up some of that initial setup work, like putting up a raised bed that you only have to do once, can definitely make your full garden vision more achievable. So when we're talking about what you can and can't actually do with your garden, we're looking at two main categories that you're going to need to consider. The first one is what you are physically capable of. And so a lot of people are going to have mobility issues that they have to deal with, bending over or lifting heavy stuff, all the compost moving and the mulching that can go into gardening.
You done pushing dirt, babe?
I will never be done pushing dirt. That's not super achievable for some people, and that's okay. There are definitely accommodations for that. Raised beds are a really great option if you're somebody who doesn't like bending over. You can get some very, very tall raised beds where you don't even really have to bend over at all. It's not like less bending, it's fully not bending over, and I can link some of those down below. But definitely, whether or not you can do the work to move the mulch or the compost into those beds, that's something to consider. Another accommodation for that I also personally use is even though I look very young and am very healthy, I cannot do all of that manual labor myself. So I often have friends or my partner come to help me on days when really big, heavy lifting work is needed. So just don't think that you have to do it all alone. And don't think that you have to do things the way that you see everybody else do them if that's not physically possible for you. The other major limitation that you're going to have to consider is time. Most of us have jobs, and the garden is not our job. The garden is not even my full-time job. This is something that I do in my spare time. So considering how many hours a day do you actually have to devote to doing stuff in the garden, that's going to be more in the spring or in the fall when you're either planting or harvesting or things like that. But there is some general maintenance that does need to be done, either daily or weekly, things like that. So I want you to be able to think about, okay, if I'm going to average it out, how many hours on a normal day would I have to devote to the garden, or how many hours would I have on a Saturday or a Sunday to devote to doing stuff in the garden and getting a lot of this stuff done. And once again, setup is a much bigger time commitment than maintenance. So for example, the perennial fruit tree area that I'm putting in, it is a lot of upfront time to get the plants, dig the holes, get them planted, get them mulched, etc. And especially taking care of them through their first winter, that is a lot more upkeep than they're going to need in the long term. So when I'm considering how much time do I have right now to get that in, that's different than how much time do I have to take care of this as an ongoing thing. You can definitely set yourself up with strategies that can reduce the amount of time that you have to spend in the garden. These are my lazy gardening strategies. One of the biggest ones that you can do is make sure that you mulch your garden. Mulching does 3 big things for your garden. It makes sure that the weeds don't grow up as easily. It keeps the moisture in your soil, so you have to water less. And it also is going to slowly break down on the surface of your garden to give you that extra organic material that is going to help your plants grow year over year. Another lazy gardening strategy that I'm currently in the middle of employing is replacing annuals with perennials. The more perennials you can have in your garden, the less planting you're going to have to do every year in the spring when it's time to get the garden in for the year. And so mostly what I'm doing is transitioning to these things that need a little bit of upfront care, but over the long haul are mostly taking care of themselves. So if you find yourself saying that you don't have a ton of time to devote to the garden, then you're going to want to think about minimizing the number of high maintenance plants that you put into your garden. And as far as lazy gardening strategies, this isn't something that you can do all immediately in the first year. Again, this is something that is going to build on itself year over year as you garden. And it's going to be very specific to your space and your needs. And I think over time you'll come up with a lot of your own lazy gardening strategies or things that you can do to make what you are trying to do in your garden more efficient. I can't necessarily make those up for you. Some of them are definitely very personal to what you can do, the tools you have, the plants you have, etc. So maybe if you've never gardened before, you are not really sure exactly what your limits are going to be. You haven't lived through doing the work. It can be really hard to visualize what actually goes into maintaining a garden. And so I do recommend that for your first year, you start out a little bit smaller than you think you need to, because there's always room to grow and expand and do more in the upcoming seasons when you have a better idea of what it actually takes to maintain a garden and what you are actually capable of and also willing to contribute. Not to mention, year over year, your confidence and skills as a gardener are going to grow, and you will actually be capable of doing more the more you do it and the more you get used to the process of gardening. All right, so if you are following along in the planner, there is an entire page dedicated just to this topic, and your homework is to fill out that page, or for those of you who are not following along with the planner, what I want you to do is to write down in your notebook an estimate of how much time you actually have to dedicate to the garden, what you anticipate your physical limitations might be, and brainstorm some strategies to kind of address those limitations, whether that is downsizing what you're starting with or asking for help, things like that. And remember, this is about sustainability and not limitation. I do not want a bunch of little burned out gardeners over there, okay? I need you to be able to maintain this garden that you are putting so much effort into right now. I do not want it to become a drag on your life. I don't want it to be a stressor for you. I want it to maintain its sense of wonder and joy and passion for you, because that is what it is about. And it is really sad to kind of think about the things that you can't do, but I think it's going to be really important in the long run to be realistic. I also want to make it clear that we are not planning for a perfect garden. You don't have to have a perfectly weeded garden or a garden that's been watered on a perfect schedule in order to have a really productive garden. I mean, anybody who's been following me has seen how weedy my garden can get and how much produce I am still able to harvest out of it. Could I get a little bit more if I was more perfect with it? Maybe, but that's not the point of the garden for me, and I absolutely would not be able to maintain this if I was aiming for that perfection. This first year really is only the beginning, and you definitely don't have to get everything exactly right away. So give yourself some grace for that. Know that next year your plans are going to be even better, and you're going to be able to take everything that you learned this year and put it into that new and improved plan, and you're going to be able to do this year over year. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. All right, so go ahead and complete your page of homework, and I will see you in the next video. Happy gardening.